tweezers. I am now a surgeon. Just look at this. This is like you're in surgery. I'm now a Bernina surgeon. And when I'm sewing, these little tweezers get in and do everything I need. So I love them. So these are the tools that you're going to need to do this. A wonder clip. I've got my Karen K. Buckley scissors because they are the only scissors I use when I'm doing knife work. And I've got a stiletto here. And you will have seen that in the email. This is the stiletto that I used to do this binding. Got some sew line, marker, glue stick, and I'm gonna need a tape measure as I'm working. I also, when I'm working, I want my binding to come from the back of my sheen, and as you can see, I'm putting it in this extra spool here, and that's gonna keep it so that it's gonna be real smooth coming in here. The other thing that's extremely important before I get started, and the reason I'm telling you this now is because once I hook this camera up, it's on this tripod thing and it's like pressed against my nose and it's like right here while I'm sewing, so I can't pull back and show you everything, so I'm showing you this now. I think, Sona, if you, I just saw the little record button, so we are recording, so I'm going to continue. One of the things that's very, very important to do this work is starching. I didn't think it was so important. I'm going to look at this. This is two pieces, one starched, one isn't. I don't know if you can tell, but one is very limp and one is nice and stiff. When you're coming down and you're feeding it into the binder, if it's too limp, when you go to do a corner, it's going to all just be like a wet noodle. The reason we starch it, and I mean really starch it, get in there and starch this, is as this is coming down through this binder, it stays nice and crisp. So when I come to the corner, I'm going to have a nice crisp corner. So I'm using Mary Ellen's Best Press. That's what I use in all of my work, and I like it because it doesn't leave a residue on the fabric. So let me see, is there anything else I wanted to show you? Yeah, so let's just talk about how I'm going to get this on. And I'm going to ask my husband, you nearby? Can you hold this? I'm just going to show you what happens. So you've gotten it out of the box and you've got the binder. Now, if you see here, there's two holes at the top. Here's my pressure foot. This is 95C. I'm going to put my pressure foot down because I need this to line up against it. This is what it looks like when it comes out of the box. See all these little Phillip heads? That's going to help you adjust how you can get it perfectly against the machine. The first thing you want to do is you want it to get it face, it's got to be really straight up. It's just got to stay right there. Now, when you put the screw on, I'm finding that for mine that this back screw is where it works good. So I'm going to put it on. I'm leaning over this camera trying to do it. And when you put this on, screw it in, press down. And when you think it's tight enough, get in there. So you think it's tight enough, but guess what? Every time you go in and out, this thing moves. So you've got to give it an extra twist. So get an extra twist in there so this doesn't go anywhere. Now this piece needs to be flush with the front of the foot. So this goes up against it, this bar goes up against it, and the front part, this that comes in and out, see the hinge? That goes flush with this, and that's how we're gonna begin. So let me go ahead now, and I'm just gonna, it's gonna take a few minutes. I'm gonna move my camera out of this little stand and put it in my overhead stand. So just give me a second, it might just shake a little bit. And you can all just deal, because you know how that is in life. Sometimes you have to deal with stuff. All right, so I'm gonna bring this over here. I think that's right. You should see I have the floor all marked with X's, so I know where I'm going, like X marks the spot. All right. Let me move the camera into position. This camera in position. I need the feet to be on the X's. They're not on the X's. And that is not working. So let's take this back. I think that's better. Let's see if I can see that good. Yeah, that's good. I think that's going to work. Okay, so now I'm getting ready to feed the fabric into the binding foot. So as I showed you, I had it over top. It comes back over top, and I'm going to place it in here. And I need my stiletto, and I'm really going to have to move this camera so you can see it. So you're just going to have to deal with me moving the camera back and forth a little bit. That's okay. So you take your stiletto, you cut this on an angle. So your fabric's cut at an angle, it's all starch, and it's the This is the right side and this is the reverse side. So I want the reverse side facing me when I do this work. Also, and I've done quilts before, I've done baby quilts and lap quilts with this binder. If you're gonna do a king size or a queen size quilt, you're gonna have a lot of this, right? It's very, very important that it doesn't have any, you don't want it so loose that it starts to spin. This will actually start to curl, or you don't want anything holding down any weight on it. So you've got to constantly move this so that it's all free flowing. No, you don't want any tension on it. So I don't want it so loose that it's curling, and I don't want it so tight that it's going to cause it to be warped here when I start to sew. I hope that makes sense. You can actually get some warping as you're going down, stitching down your binding, if you are doing any pressure on it whatsoever. So let's go ahead and use the stiletto. Get that in there, pull it out. Now there's little lips here. I don't know if you can see them. There's like little lips right here. I'm looking at the camera, yes. And if you look at this, it comes straight this way and then bends back that way. So as you're working, you're concerned with keeping this stiletto with the fabric in here, and don't worry about that. That's bending off that way. Don't try to shove the fabric up against that. This is where all the action is, right here. So I wanted to show you, and this is exactly what I wanted to show you. I want to show you that I've got many people watching this live. I've got a camera basically nailed against my nose, and all the work I didn't do any cameras near me. I didn't have any people watching me. I did my own thing, just like you're going to be. You're in your own house. So I want to show you what it looks like, because if I'm doing this camera work and it makes any mistakes or I make any mistakes, I want you to know that it really can do it and I can do it. So here's your mitered corners done with this beautiful attachment. This is the back. This is the front. That's that nice corner. And the tail, there's the end right there. Let's see if I can get that in there so you can see it better. That's the top, and this is the bottom right here. So it's almost invisible. So here I am, I'm ready to stitch my next piece. Now, the one thing that I do advise, and I didn't do it on this one, but that's okay, I think it's gonna be fine, is that you should really finish the edges. And the reason you want, and this is pretty thin batting, so I'm not too worried about it. But if this is a really thick batting, and I want you to practice on the same material that you would have. So if you're going for a quilt, a baby quilt, practice with the same batting. So when you make your sandwiches, I would suggest you make 4 12 by 12 sandwiches. And the reason they're 12 by 12 is you want to have enough room as you're coming to do a corner. I need you to have enough room before you come to the very final end to go ahead and get ready to do that tail. If you only make it 6 inch, a little, if you make a little, you're going to make, you're trying to learn how to do this, you make these little sandwiches, it's going to defeat the purpose. You need these things nice and big. So when I first started out, where are they? When I first started out doing this work, probably just like you, I said, you know what, I paid a lot of money for this thing. This should be doing it all on its own. What am I worried about? I've looked at the book. It's got like, what, 8-point type in the little book that comes with it. I'm looking all over the internet. I'm not really seeing anything clearly. I can do this. This should be working good. So this is one of my first pieces that I did. And as you can see, I didn't quilt it. I wasn't thinking that. I didn't realize that you would have to have a sandwich that's quilted. I was just like top, bottom, let's go. So I put the batting in it, I put the backing on it, and I said, I can do this, let's go. But the reality of it is that it's not holding together, it's not firm. So all of my edges are all like, they're warped. Look at the mitered corners, they're like rounded. And then look at this, it's not even on. See this? This is because I'm not using a stiletto. Here's a rounded corner, it's not even mitered. I mean, it's just curved and wonky. So this is me learning how to do it. And here's another one. Look at this. This is one of my corners. So I'm frustrated. I'm calling my sister and saying, you know what? This is ridiculous. I paid a lot of money for this thing that's not working. And then I'll tell you what I realized. I realized that my Bernina, your Bernina, can do a lot of things. And it will do a lot of things, but it can't think for you. So you have to engage your brain. And so that's why I decided to spend 8 hours and really get into this. And you can see this is my end. Look at how it doesn't even meet. So I'm just showing you this because there are no mistakes. They're only life lessons. I don't look at any of this as a mistake. These aren't mistakes. These are my very first time doing it. But guess what? As I continued to do this, I got better and better. I made 20 placemats, 32 pot holders. I really got into this. And the reason I got into this is because I want to learn something. I told myself, you know, Lorraine, 2020 is a year learning. And so this is one of the things I learned. And I want to share it with you. So as I begin, I've got my 12 by 12 sandwich, and I want to, here's my corner. I want to come down here close to the corner when I begin. And the reason is this is going to be, again, you're going to come down here and you're making that tail. So you start out by pulling out this excess. You've got this all in there, pulled out the excess. And I'm going to see how it's not even in the machine yet. I'm just going to slip this in, make sure it's inside of that lip. I need to get it top and bottom here. Get that in there. There you go. I slid it in, and I'm sliding this towards the machine.
Lorraine?
Yes.
Hey, can you move the camera just a tad bit under the needle? Because now that you're going under the needle, there we go.
Is that better?
Yeah, that's
you can try.
Perfect. Oh,
right there. Will
yeah.
that work? This is where I'm sewing
work.
right here. Okay. Sorry about that, everybody. As you can see, this is how it goes. You got to keep. Here's my chair trying to get in this. Let me move it again, Sona. Okay, I think that should be good. So you can see my needle. This is my needle. This is my stiletto, pushing it in. You can see that it bends off the back, and I'm not paying attention to that. The other thing before we start that I want to say is, remember now, you've got seams here. So when you come down, tick, 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 and you've got a seam here, slowly, as you're stitching here, look up here, keep your eye here, and when that seam comes around, stop, get the stiletto, just make sure that seam is right there so that it doesn't interfere with anything, and then keep stitching. And I don't know if we're going to come to a seam in this demonstration. We'll see. So I've got this ready, got this down. I'm going to put my, oh, you know what, Sona, I wanted to tell people that these machines come with an automatic, I'm going to pull this back, see if I can do this. They come with an automatic lock. Remember that we talked about that. So up here, I'm going to have to put this back again. Dean, can you help me? I think I can do this. I don't know. So when you're working on your machine, go into your settings. Gotta go back to where it was. Stitching, yes. See this lock here? It comes automatically standard. That's what it comes on when you buy your machine. This is automatically turned on. So you need to go into your settings, the stitching, and turn this off. And this will help you with mitered corners. Until I did that, I kept messing up my corners because it would always do this lock at the beginning of the stitch, and it would make my corners all wobbly. So that's my tip to you. Go, before you even begin, turn this off. There, that's pretty important. So I wanted to stop and show you that. So let's see if I can get this back on my needle. That should work. Okay. I think that's good, Sona. If that's not good, please let me know, but I think we're ready to go.
Looks great.
So
Thank you.
okay, so now we're going to put the pressure foot down. Put the pressure foot down. Can you take that wire, please? And take this tripod and move it. There we go. Sheesh. There's a lot of wires around me. All right. Try to get a little closer and still be able to sew. All right. So I got my stiletto. It's really important to have this. It works great. And I've also had I showed you my settings. My needle position is one notch to the left. Or yeah, one notch left. And what happens is, and it might be different on yours, once you go to engage this, you can see, let's put my needle down, if I need to move this needle anywhere. Right now I can see it's not even touching it, so it's very important. You want to get that needle position. And I want to move it over because I want to make sure that that needle is going to hit the binding. There you go. And you want it close to the edge. So I'm good to go there. So now I'm going to start and I'm going to go to the very end. I'm going to stitch all the way to the end. And I'll just move this up a little bit. I haven't really slowed. And my binding and my top stitch is 50 weight Aurifil thread, and I'm using lavender to match the binding. Let me get this string out of here. I'm using this to hold it flat. I'm going to stitch all the way to the end. Stop, take a stitch back, come forward, and cut the thread. Now we're going to come out and we're going to pull it out. I need to see where I'm not even on this thing. I pulled it out and I'm going to use a wonder clip. Now, if you look at some YouTube videos, they're using glues and pin, and that's fine. If you want to do that, go ahead. I'm using a wonder clip and I'm going to baste it with a thread and a needle very quickly. So you get this miter, right? You find that miter to the way you really, really like it. That looks pretty good. I'm happy with that. I put the wonder clip there. And now I take, and I have this little magnetized thread or pin holder next to me. There's just a little tiny square pin holder that's magnetized. And I've threaded my needles. Here you go. And I'm holding it in the front. That looks really good. And I turn to the back and I take a look at it. Now it actually looks pretty good. But if it's not good, if this wasn't good and it looks really great in the front, just take your tweezers and fiddle with it and get this to a perfect miter. That's the key here. So you get to make sure it looks great on the front and it's on the back. And then I want you to take this needle and thread and stab it in. Just get it right in there. Make sure it goes right to the front as well. It's just a basting to hold it. I'm going to go back in, stab it again. Just be careful your wonder clip because there's a lot of threads here. I don't know why it didn't stay, but it didn't. Let's try it again. Okay, so I've got it this side. See how I've got it this side? Now I'm going to back and stab it. And I'm going to go over the top. Make sure you don't stab yourself. This thread now goes on the top. And as you can see, this isn't going anywhere. All right. So now I'm going to clip my threads. I'm going to move them behind me. And now I'm going to take the wonder clip off. And I'm going to pull this back. Pull this forward, pull this back at the same time, get it up there, nice and tight. And I have to look now where I stitched, my stitch line, stitch, 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 stitch. I need that needle to hit that same spot. So it looks like it was stitched consecutively. So you have to manually get in there, position that needle, make sure that's where you want it. Yeah, it looks good. And now you put your foot down. And remember, I don't have that starting lock stitch anymore, so it's not going to go lock, lock, lock. And so I should be able to have no problem going into it. Now, again, make sure this is all flat. I'm using this little stiletto. This is all nice and tight here. There's no blue ribbon for rushing this, so I'm taking my time. Now, it's not going anywhere. See how it's just going up and down? Just lift the needle out, pull that needle up. I sometimes lift the pressure foot up, and I start again, because what's happening is there's a lot of bulk right there, and sometimes it just stays in one place. Now it's going to go. Oops, it's still doing that. I'll lift it up. There we go. Now it's going. All right. So now here we go again. I'm going to go down to the next corner, and if I push too much, I'm going to get a warp in the binding. So it's really a matter of using the stiletto, keeping your hand here, and make sure everything's nice and loose going here. You don't want to push too hard against this. It's not your job to shove this up against it. You're just laying it flat and keeping it all nice and neat. I'm also stopping and I'm watching this area. If there's a seam coming up, I need to make sure that it stays nice here. Now, when I was first doing this, I wasn't paying attention. I was off at the races. I watched all these videos. Everybody else was going, they were stitching real fast. So I was stitching real fast. And this turned backwards. This was inside out. Now, as I'm down here looking at this, now I've got it inside out. Now, if you're doing a big quilt, you don't want that stuff inside out. That's a lot of ripping out and trying to figure that out. So just take your time and let the machine do the work, but you just need to help it a little bit. I'm going to stitch all the way down to the next corner. I'm going to go all the way to the end. I'm going to take a stitch back to the end and cut it. Same process, bring it out, pull it out a little bit. And you can get rid of these threads if these threads are bothering you. If you see any extra threads here, you can snip them. Just get rid of everything that doesn't belong. That's what I call it. Now make that nice mitered corner. Now do you see why you need to have this starched? If this wasn't starched, it's just this big fluffy bunch of fabric here, and it's a pain in the neck to get that mitered corner. Now I've got that mitered corner. I'm going to get my wonder clip here. Come on, wonder clip, get in there. And I'm going to get my thread and needle. Now for the sake of, television, I've got like 3 little threaded here. I'm going to go to the back. Oh, the back looks pretty good. I'm not going to fiddle with it. I'm going to go to the back. I'm going to stab it. I'm going to go to the front, not stab myself. There we go. Nice and stabbed. If you need to use a thimble, go ahead and use a thimble. I don't need one. I'm going to go to the back again, stab it. This little binding attachment, I'm telling you right now, it's one of the best investments I've ever made. Like I said, I'm making a lot of gifts, and I do not want to get into hand binding all of these gifts. I'm going to the back again. Oops, let me get this. There we go. I'm going to go over the top, get this thread over the top. And now I've got this nice, it's squared off here. I'm going to clip it. And let me just say a word about this. You see me doing this hand stitching. In some of the tutorials I've seen, and this might work for you, it doesn't work for me. I've tried it and I've just messed it up. When they get to this mitered part, they put a stick of glue stick here, and they fold this over and they fold the back over, and they take a pin, just a regular straight pin. And then they put this in and they do all that. I have found that for me personally, you might be really, really adept at that. I'm just finding it's not working for me, but I also want to just include it in this to say, hey, if you think that this is too much for you, you might want to try glue. It doesn't work for me. I can't seem to enjoy that. I want to enjoy my sewing. I don't want to be frustrated here at the sewing machine. So I'm going to move this back in. As I approach it, I'm moving this back in. I'm moving this back out. I've got it all lined up, and I'm looking where that needle position is. Get these threads out of the way. I love the stiletto. Man, what a great invention. And I'm going to just maneuver this so I get that. There we go. I got it right lined up where it belongs. And I'm going down to I've got 2 corners done. There we go. Again, it's going to stay there. So I'm going to lift it up, lift everything up, start again. Come on. So this stays flat, but it doesn't get shoved up. It just stays flat, and just use your hands to guide it. It's a very professional look. If you've ever tried to do where you stitch on the front and then do the stitch in the ditch to try and hide it, I've done that many times, and no matter how many times I do it, it doesn't look as professional, as clean as this. And I really love this look. Okay, so we're coming down to the end. I'm going to repeat it. Coming down to the end, take a stitch back, cut it, pull it out of the machine. And again, remember, if you have a thicker batting, make sure that you finish these edges with just a zigzag stitch. So I'm doing this. This is my number 3 corner. I hope you're all still following along with me. You know, in TV land, they edit it and they speed things up, whatever, but you know what? This is live, and this is what you're getting. Me, live. So if I make a mistake, you're all there watching me. But so far, it's pretty good. So there we go. I got a nice mitered corner. How's the back look? Well, the back needs a little bit of fixing. So we're going to take our tweezers and we're going to just make sure that that miter looks better. See that miter? Now it's where I want it. So I'm going to take this, stab it, hold that stitch. I don't know if you can see, you know, I'm doing my best to get this so that you can see my hands. Go back again, stab it, make sure that miter is right there where you want it. This is what I love about it. This is what keeps the precision in that corner, is that you're putting it right where you want it. Stitch it again, give it another stab. Over the top. Pull it. There we go. We've got a nice corner. Snip the threads. I'm bringing it back under, taking my Wonder Clip out, taking these threads, getting them out of the way, pull them back. We're going to get back into the machine. I'm going to pull this towards me, pull this towards the machine, and get it all lined up. Take your stiletto. Make sure everything's nice and flat here. And get my needle in the position right where I want it, right there. There, yeah, right there. And we will begin again. So as you see, I'm just pushing it up a little bit. I'm lifting my needle, I'm up, I'm putting my needle up. I'm lifting my needle up, I'm lifting my pressure foot up just to get a little pressure off of that corner so that it can go. You don't want to get into too much pushing up there because you're going to get a warped corner. That's not what you're going for. You're going for a nice clean corner. So now we're just going to go ahead and do this end. I'm coming up to what I see is a seam. So we're going to talk about that. So let's go through here. Here we go. See this coming up here? This has to make sure it doesn't flip, or this might cause a problem. So you're just going to make sure it goes right in there. There we go. So now it's in there nice and even. Hopefully it won't end up on my mitered corner. I don't know. We'll see. And I'm going to go back. Cut. Okay, this is the fourth corner that we've just finished, and now we're going to come for the tail. So all I need to do is finish this corner just a few stitches down, and then I'm going to stop. And I'm going to show you. Yeah, see this right here. So we'll see how well I do in this. I got this fabric right here, so we'll see. We're gonna do my best here. I'm gonna clip it with a Wonder Clip. Looking pretty good in the front. I see that nice mitered corner. I'm gonna go in the back. The back's looking great. Okay, I'm gonna get my thread needle. Make sure I got this looking good. It looks good. Push it through the front. Stab it again. This is my last corner. I go back, stick it. I'm going over the top this time. Oops, just undid my needle. All right, hang on a second. There we go. So again, it's like this, when you stick this, you want this to go this way and this way to keep that nice and corner. And I'm seeing right now, I got this a little bit too high up. So I'm gonna go one more time. I'm gonna go one more time just to make sure it's held. I'd rather be safe than sorry. Come on. Okay. So, well, that didn't work. But anyway, that's okay. My goodness, I was just on Quilting Arts television, and do you know how hard it is to get this all done with a television audience looking at you? And So if I can do Quilting Arts TV with Susan Brubaker-Knapp, I can do Sewn at Bernina World of Sewn. That's what I'm thinking. So I'm gonna take this back.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're a star.
I'm trying my best here.
You're doing awesome, girl.
Okay, so we're gonna make this go back. We're gonna come back. This is my last corner, everybody. Get these threads out of the way. Absolutely, absolutely cannot say enough about this attachment. If you're thinking about making any gifts for anybody that includes this type of work, even your quilts, I do not enter my quilts for judging. I am an exhibitor, so that means I do exhibition only. And I'll tell you right now, this is a real perfect way for my art quilts that I will be using as I go forward. So now I'm on my last corner, and I'm just going to stitch a few stitches. I'm going to take this down. Come on. It's doing that. I'm going to lift it up again. Some pressure off of it. There we go. So now it's going down. So I'm just going to do a little bit and stop. Done. Stop. So now if you look, you can see this is where the beginning is. So now we have to come down and take care of this tail. So what I like to do is I like to go to the back and make sure that I grab it where the stitching all looks nice and clean. You don't have to go to the end where the stitching is, because remember, when we first put it in the machine, it could be a little bit off. It could be a little hanging this way, hanging that way. You want to get to it so it's nice and, see this, nice and perpendicular. I want that perpendicular. So I'm going to go to the back, and I'm just going to find an area that I think looks good. I think that looks good. I'm going to snip it straight up. I'm going to take it to the front. And if there's a few stitches here, just get rid of them. Okay. So now I'm going to take this. I've cut the back. I'm going to go straight to the front. There you go. Throw that away. You're done with that. So now what you're going to do is, and this is where the fun part, this is where the math part. No, I'm not a math person. Trust me. My husband will tell you I'm not a math person. But if you measure from here to here, you're always going to have this metal isn't going anywhere. It's not going to grow or shrink or anything else. You have a standard measurement here. So what you're going to do is you're going to measure 6 inches up from this tail. So here's my tail. I've got 6 inches. I'm going to move 6 inches. I'm going to go up on my fabric, and I'm going to use a fabric marker. If I'm using dark fabric, I'm going to use my light chalk and my sew line marker, which is the only tool I use, and I absolutely love it. And sometimes if I can't see that marker, if I don't want to mess around too much, I'm just going to mark it, and look where I'm marking it, out here. I need to see when that needle goes stitch, 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 I need it to march right here. So I'm marking it out here 6 inches. Now I'm going to get to 6 inches and stop. Stop. Lift it up. Make sure you're right at that 6 inches. I'm good to go. 6 inches. So what you need to understand is you need 6 inches to the tail. You need a 1/2 inch to cover the tail, and you need a 1/4 inch to tuck under. So that's 6 3/4 inches. So you can take your tape measure and you can do this. I'm going to measure 6 3/4 inches. I'm going to go from here. I'm going to go up here, and I'm going to say 6 3/4, right? Or you can do what I do. 6 3/4 will always be 2 1/2 inches past this metal bar. See this metal bar? So all you have to remember, and you can write this down in your little attachment book, 2 1/2 inches. I'm measuring 2 1/2 inches right there. I'm going to cut, and whenever I do that 2 1/2 inches, I just cut the other side of my thumb. Right? I'm not cutting right at the thing. I'm just going to go over where my thumb is, and I'm going to cut, snip. Now I'm going to take my sew line glue stick, and I'm going to just put a little thing of glue on it. Doesn't have to be heavy duty. And I'm going to go under 1/4 inch. Let's get this under 1/4 inch. Get that nice and tight. If you have any little threads that are hanging off, get them off. This is your tail. Don't want any little threads. Always remember, and this is something that took me a while, the bottom is the back. That means that stitching in the back, this is the front. So if you were going to play around, and I have played around with making angled finishes and all that, Just remember that the bottom is the back and this is the front, and that might help you when you start playing and practicing with this. So now always remember, as you're stitching, you're going to see the end go, you're going to actually see this little window. You're going to see it coming. And so as you're stitching, sometimes, you know, whatever, tension, fabric, humidity, I don't know. But when you get down here, they're not completely lined up perfectly. And that's when the stiletto comes in. That becomes your friend. So we're going to finish this. I'm taking this down. I'm stitching it. I can see it coming down. Here it is. Here's my little window. I'm also watching this. This and this have to line up. So I've got my stiletto. I've got my, now I can see my tail. See my tail? It's coming in here. I'm going to make sure it's got to line up with here. So I've got to actually take this and keep this lined up. So if I might have to maneuver it, see me maneuvering it? I got to maneuver it in there and get this under right here. Push it over. Get that under there. And now I can see it's coming down the end here. Slowly just going to stitch it. And then I go back one little stitch. And then I cut it. So now here's my end. You could see I pushed it underneath it, but this thing could have come over a little bit more, but I'm still okay with that. This is a gift for somebody. I'm okay with that. This isn't a show quilt. Here's my back. And now I'm going to take my little scissors and let me get my curved scissors. I like to use my Kai curved scissors. Let me get them. So these are the Kai curved scissors that I always work with. You might have them too. And you're just going to go back in and you're going to clean up all these stitches, all these little stitches you want to take away that doesn't belong. That's what I call it. Just get rid of all that stuff that doesn't belong. Snip all of this off. All this off. All these little pieces off. All this little extra stitches off. And this is looking good. Now, one of the things that I learned from, I wrote her name, Sarah Snuggard, and I absolutely love this quote and I've been using it a lot, is that she said, never let perfect get in the way of good. Never let perfect get in the way of good. So I'm going to share that with you because I think it's great advice. You are enjoying yourself. This is fun. You want to be able to enjoy it. You want to be able to enjoy this attachment. You want to do what I do, make 20 gifts for people. You know why I did that? Because I have learned when I do this work, and I do this all the time, is I engage my heart into my work. If you engage your heart energy, you'll see it come through your art. So as I'm doing a gift for my family, for my loved ones, I mean, this is a time, as we know, that we're all apart. And what better way, if you want to learn something new, than to give it as a gift to someone. So that's how I treated this entire endeavor, is I engaged my heart into it, knowing that I was going to give a nice pot holder, placemat for my sisters, for my loved ones, for my children, and you can too. And I honestly, 25% off is pretty darn good if you're going to do this. Okay, so there's my corners. Looking pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. Pretty good for having to do it on a camera live in front of people. I'm thinking this is looking pretty good. And I got some extra things. So
That looks awesome.
I think it looks pretty good. I mean, as I showed you, this attachment can make some beautiful, beautiful things. And I'm going to show you some of the things when the camera wasn't on me. Some of the things that I did. So here we go. We've got some nice mitered corners here, and my tail is pretty good. Got this. I've never quilted like this in my life, so this is all learning for me. When you want to do a curved edge is the same thing. Use that stiletto and get in here. Now, as you can see, my line, and here's a nice finish, my line is a little bit further away from it. That's what this needle position, when you pop that needle position, that's what's going to determine where that thread line goes. That's up to you. And let's see what else I did. I did some more. So we got some other, these are all little pieces that I did that I'm going to give as gifts. And I'll tell you what better way to learn? I mean, learn by doing. You can learn a lot just by saying, you know what, this year I'm going to do this. And you'll be teaching yourself at the same time and giving a gift to someone. Now, I do want to talk about, here's my fabrics, the calico horses. So when you do this, I've got a lot of batting in here. I found, and this is before I got my attachment, I found that when I started doing this, these extra pockets, and a lot of these patterns come with these pot holders with pockets, right? You got a pocket here. When you go to use your binding attachment, it is so thick there that I'm doing really, really, really good here. And then all of a sudden it becomes a problem. So what I'm thinking, Sona, is that, I had them here a minute ago, I'm thinking about using the little plastic spacer thingy and playing with it and seeing if I can't figure out how to do several layers of batting and get that down. And I just had them here, but they're not here. Sorry about that. But
Gotcha.
I think you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
What are they called? They're called extensions
the
or something?
The height compensation tool.
Height compensation. So if you have a Bernina and that comes with your Bernina, you'll have the height compensation. So now we're at the part where I just want to talk about the fact that how wonderful. Okay, every time you do a sandwich, you get to practice 3 corners, but you only get to do 1 tail. So what can you do about that? I mean, this is a lot of work to do. You got to do the quilting here to make it all stable. You've got to finish the edges. You've got to do the starching. This is a big production to do practice, right? So this is what I did. I decided, Lori Kennedy is a Bernina ambassador, and I love her. And she does free motion quilting. I've never done this stuff. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to kill 2 birds with 1 stone with this. I'm going to make my sandwich. I'm going to learn how to do free motion quilting, right? This Bernina can do everything. My Bernina 770 QE can do anything. So it's, it's like a magician. So I wanted to say, okay, Lorraine, get your batting, make your sandwich, practice your free motion quilting, and also use this piece to do your finished binding. So how do you finish the stops and the starts and all that? Well, what I did was, I'm going to suggest that you get a piece, and here's another one. Get a piece of 20-inch, make a 20-inch sandwich. This doesn't have to be that long. This is only like 8 inches. So 20 by 8 inches, get some scrap fabric. Here's my edges, they're all finished. Here's my sandwich, it's got the front and the back. And what you're going to do is you're going to, let's see if I have enough. Yeah, I have enough. I'm going to pretend, this is all play, I'm just practicing, I'm pretending that I'm coming to an end. But to come to an end, I gotta make a start. So I'm gonna load my binding, get it out like I just told you in the beginning, get it all out here, pull it out, put your fabric in. Remember, see this metal thing, it doesn't go under it, it goes over top of it. Get it in these little lips, get it in there, put it in there, get this all flat, lower your pressure foot, make sure your thread, I can see right now it's not over once, I need to pop it over so it's all lined up nicely. Get some stitching in. Down about 3 inches. Stop, cut my thread. I'm gonna pull this out. I'm gonna snip it. And this is the beginning. So now we're gonna pretend we've just gone down a corner, right? So if I'm gonna snip it here, let's go back to the back. Remember I said it gets kind of wonky back here. So you wanna get to a place where it really looks good. So we're gonna go right here. Snip it from the back. Come on, cooperate. Take it to the front. And get my stitches out of here. There we go. So just get this cleaned up. And now let's go ahead and measure that 6 inches. Remember we talked about that 6 inches? Because this is we're coming down to that tail. So take your 6 inches, get your marker. Take this, get my 6 inches, bang, right there. Take it up here, mark it. Remember, we want to mark it out here because I need to see when I'm coming around there, I need to see where that needle position has to stop. It has to stop right there. So now you're going to go up above it a little bit because we're pretending, right? We're pretending we're finished our corners and we want to practice tails. So we're going to get this up here. And I'm not going to do a bunch of these. I'm just going to show you a way that you can practice at home how to do this. So I've got this down, because you know the worst thing to do is to practice and you've got a quilt, like your whole quilt thing, and you're coming down to the end and you got one shot at it. So this is how is a great way to practice. So I'm going to stitch to the 6 inches. Right down to the 6 inches, make sure my needle's there. And take one more stitch. And I'm going to lift it up. Make sure, nope, I got one more stitch to go. There you go. So that's 6 inches. I'm going to come up here to the end of this metal, and I'm going to measure 2.5 inches. 2.5 inches. There's my thumb. I'm going to cut past my thumb. I'm going to put the glue stick on. Just get a little dab of glue here. Turn the ends under. Get this all turned under. Snip away any little extra threads if you see any threads. Just going to get rid of some of these little threads. I want this to be nice and neat. Okay, so now I'm coming down and I'm practicing my end. Here we go. Here's the purple, coming up with the purple, and I want to just slowly get this flat, tuck it in. And just go back and forth, and I can see this little tuck. Now, I have seen people when they're doing this, as they come down, if they see any little extra ends in here, they just tuck this, they just tuck it in with a stiletto and tap that down, and you can actually tack that in. But that's how you're going to practice. There's the practice, there's the back. So you're going to practice your ends by cutting yourself a nice big piece of you know, a nice big sandwich, and practice just the ends. Now here we go, we've got an end here. We can treat that as an end and just go up here and come down here for the 6 inches and just keep going all the way around it and practicing your ends. So at this time, I think we can, I think that's pretty good. We're gonna open up for questions, but if you wanna see anything else, I'll be writing a blog and you'll see it on weallsew.com. And I think we could stop the recording and take some questions.